Hi, my name is Nate Hopkins, also known as Hopsoft on both Twitter and GitHub. I founded CodeFund with my good friend Eric Berry. It's an open source ethical ad platform built for developers. I encourage you to check it out. I'm also the creator of CableReady and StimulusReflex, two libraries designed to help you build reactive applications with Ruby on Rails. Why has the industry turned to building highly reactive applications? Well, there are several reasons. As the web has matured, applications have become more sophisticated, and user expectations have intensified. We've experienced these demands at CodeFund. Here's a brief example of one of our UIs. This was created by two developers over the course of 1 week. In fact, the most sophisticated part was the business logic for fetching the appropriate data. That's as it should be. Simplifying how reactive applications are built allows developers to focus on the logic that makes the business unique. You know, the stuff that actually makes money. So, how do we accomplish that goal? We leverage three tools. Rails is the foundation on which everything else is built. CableReady provides the tooling to directly interact with the DOM from your Rails backend. StimulusReflex is a piece that helps you build reactive applications with ease. CableReady and StimulusReflex solve different concerns, so let's quickly review what each library does. CableReady is designed to broadcast DOM updates from your Rails backend to multiple clients at once. It uses Action Cable and makes notifying users and updating the UI incredibly simple. Think real-time updates, things like progress bars, counters, chat, etc. StimulusReflex is designed to help you build reactive applications in the simplest way possible. When a single user interacts with your site, Rails is notified and a server-side reflex is called. After the reflex logic executes, the current page is re-rendered server-side and then sent back to the client where a DOM diff is performed and only the changed elements are updated. No complex front-end stack required, just speed of development tailored to developer productivity and happiness. In this video, we'll build a Twitter clone using these tools. First, we'll set up Rails for this style of development. Next, we'll build some CableReady broadcasts. And finally, we'll use StimulusReflex to react to user input. So let's set up our Rails application. We'll call it Chatter. Now we need to add some dependencies. Redis, CableReady, and StimulusReflex. And we'll install the npm packages as well. And finally, we'll install StimulusReflex into the application. Okay, now we can start thinking about the data model. We'll generate a scaffold here, call it a post, give it a username, body, some counters, and we don't need JBuilder. Let's just modify the migration. We'll set up some data integrity and add some defaults here. There we go. And we'll add one small validation and migrate. Okay, now we can go clean up the controller. Let the scaffold generated for us. We'll get rid of some of these things we don't need. Let's order these posts with the newest at the top. Get rid of some of that stuff that we don't want to use. And we'll just redirect back to the post path after we create a new one. And we can delete these methods we're not using. And let's update our params because all we care about is the body. And now let's hop over and update our routes. We only need index and create, and let's set our root route. Okay, let's pop over to our layout. And we're going to use Bootstrap CDN to pull in Bootstrap here. And I took the liberty of creating a couple of pre-baked templates using Bootstrap. All we need is the form and the index. Let's update the post controller. We'll set up a post variable, and we actually need to create as opposed to instantiate during create. Let's start up our Rails server and then go preview this thing. Make sure it looks good in a browser. Yep, looks great. Let's try to create a post. There we go. So that gets us to our standard Rails form and standard Rails functionality. Let's make it a bit more interesting and wire in CableReady so that when someone submits, all users are updated. To accomplish this, we have a little bit more setup to do on Action Cable. We'll go to the connection and just set up the identifier to be session ID. That way we can isolate users from each other as they connect on the WebSocket. Next, we need to create an Action Cable channel. We'll set one up for our timeline here. And then we need to drop in and make just a couple of minor changes on the timeline channel. We don't need unsubscribed, but on subscribed, we're going to stream from timeline. That's just an identifier for who's going to receive this payload over the WebSocket. Next, we'll go to the consumer on the client side. As we receive data here, we're going to look for CableReady data. If it's CableReady, then we're going to ask CableReady to perform its operations on that data. We'll import CableReady, and now CableReady is wired up and ready for use. So now let's pop over to the controller, include CableReady broadcaster, and let's start setting up the broadcast. So we'll use the CableReady helper, specify the timeline stream name, and we're going to use insert adjacent HTML, which is a standard DOM operation. We're going to use a selector, a DOM selector. We're going to use the position after begin so that we put this at the top of the list, and then we're going to render a partial for our post. We'll set the locals, and then the final thing we need to do is actually do the broadcast. So let's go refactor the views now. All right, let's go create that partial. There we go. Now we're going to render that partial and feed it our collection of posts. Let's just chop this implementation out and put it in our partial. And now let's wrap this in a div identified as timeline. And let's see if it works. Awesome. Looks like we're in business. So that covers broadcasts. But now let's make it reactive with StimulusReflex. So let's do a little refactoring. Let's copy the actual count and move it inside of this block. We're doing that because we want to isolate it inside of a span tag or some element with a unique ID. That will allow us to increment this by targeting it from the back end later. Once we've got that, we'll do the same thing for the likes. And our view is almost ready. Next, let's set up the reflexes. So we'll set a data attribute for reflex, listen for a click event, and on that click, we're going to invoke the post-reflex repost method. We need the ID of the post, so we'll set that up as a data attribute, and we'll do the same sort of thing for our likes. Note that reflex attributes are similar to stimulus actions. That's by design. Okay, we're ready to go create a reflex now. So let's use a generator to generate our post reflex. We'll pop into the app, drop into the reflexes directory, go to the post reflex. We'll get rid of some of those comments and we'll define our repost. So let's reference the element dataset ID. That's the ID we tacked on to the element itself. And now we'll just increment the repost count, and we will do the same for likes. So let's go see if that worked. Looks like it does. For the individual user, we have a reactive application. Notice it doesn't update for the other user. We need to go do a CableReady broadcast to make that happen. So let's go set that up. We're going to change this value in this element. So let's grab its ID. Go back into our Reflex. We'll include the CableReady broadcaster. And then we'll go set the broadcast up. We'll connect to our timeline stream, and we're going to set a text content, which is another DOM action. We'll give it the selector of that element ID, and we'll just put the repost count in there. And then we'll broadcast that change. We'll do the same for likes. And I think we're ready to test again. And look at that. It works. We have a Twitter clone in 10 minutes. Pretty fantastic. All thanks to Rails, CableReady, and StimulusReflex. A special thanks to CodeFund and Gitcoin for making this video possible. Reach out on Twitter. I'm Hopsoft. Please try the library. I'm excited to hear what you think and to see what cool things you're going to build with it. Thanks for watching. I will see you online.